Coming up next on Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable, a top aide to Attorney General Tom Horne resigns amid a variety of cases and complaints against the AG's office, and the state education chief warns of barbarians at the gate in an effort to preserve Common Core education standards. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Luigi Del Puerto of the Arizona Capital Times. An eventful week for Attorney General Tom Horne, who now is fighting a variety of accusations that he's using state personnel and resources to run his re-election campaign during work hours. Where do we begin? How about the finance case? Let's start with Sheila Polk up there in Yavapai County. Administrative law judge says do this, and she says something else.
And County Attorney Polk disagreed with the finding that was made last month by an administrative law judge. That judge said, "Nah, I do not see clear and convincing evidence that Tom Horne illegally coordinated for messages on his 2010 campaign." Charges dismissed. Went back to Polk. Polk said, "I disagree. I think that there's a good case to be made. It's circumstantial. I mean, there's no smoking gun with someone on tape or in a memo saying, you do this. I am Tom Horne and I am directing this independent campaign to do this." But Polk believes that there's enough evidence to suggest there was coordination.
You understand the process here. Polk made that finding in October. Horne and Kathleen Wynn, who was the woman who's running the supposedly independent committee, asked for a hearing, which is their right. And it went to what's called an administrative law judge, a hearing officer. Now, it's always been that this is simply a recommendation back to the agency. Normally, it's something like DEQ finds you guilty of something, or Department of Health goes back to the agency chief. Well, normally the agency would be the Attorney General, but who obviously had to be farmed out. There was no requirement for Polk to honor the recommendation, number one. Number two is she said, look, the standard for this stuff is what they call preponderance of the evidence, sort of a 51-49 thing. And she said, based on my examination of the credibility of the witnesses, I believe that the testimony of Horne and Wynn that they weren't discussing anything other than a real estate deal is not credible. So she gets to pursue it.
Yeah, and clearly, even in her opinion, in the order, the enforcement order that she had sent out, she used the phrase inference, very strong inferences that this happened. She looked into the phone calls that were made between Kathleen Wynn and Tom Horne, and in addition to that, the timing when those were made, and then the emails that then went out between Kathleen Wynn and a consultant that was making an ad against Rotolini at that time. And she said, hey, look at the timing of these phone calls. Look at how many minutes after this phone call between Tom Horne and Kathleen Wynn was made, and then you see this email going out to this consultant. And if you look at all of these things, the totality of the evidence, there's very strong inference here that there was coordination.
Now, what's interesting, of course, is the question, again, of credibility. And Horne's argument is, look, the Tammy Eigen here, who's the hearing officer, she got to hear all the witnesses. She gets to judge the credibility of the witnesses. Now, Horne, in sort of a brush off to Polk, said, well, she doesn't even know who these people are. How can she judge credibility? And so this is going to get real interesting, because the next step is Superior Court, where Horne and Wynn will have to fight it, which also means it drags on through.
It drags right on through
the
August
primary.
Yeah. And again, I understand that Sheila Polk said more probable than not that there was some coordination. Yet the administrative law judge, who again doesn't have to make a hard, fast ruling, just say whether or not it's 51-49 one direction or the other, found 51 on the Horne side. So we're seeing two folks seeing two different things.
We do, and Tom Horne is going to point to that administrative law judge, as he has already in the last 2 days, to say, look, we had this judge who examined all the evidence, independent party, and non-political, etc. And this is what she found. So you're going to take her word, or are you going to take this county attorney, who, what was the term, a political?
She's just a a local politician somehow,
Yeah.
that somehow she doesn't matter.
Actually, she called her a county politician, which is
yes.
probably even worse in
Yes.
terms of the state politics. Was this a surprise that Sheila Polk went ahead with this?
No, because really there were only two ways she could go about this: when she would either accept the recommendation of the ELJ, or pursue the case, which was the conclusion that she had reached last year. And if I am not mistaken, I could completely be wrong here, but if I'm not mistaken, when this case is appealed before the Superior Court, I do not think that the Superior Court would retry the merits of the case. If I'm not mistaken, what the judge the Superior Court judge would look at is whether the agency, in this case the county attorney, had made a capricious judgment in still pursuing this case. So it's a higher bar. It's not. I don't think it's a retrial of the merits of the case.
Well, this is where it also gets interesting. To come back to your question, I was a little bit surprised. I mean, I figured, look, if this had been Bill Montgomery, who seems to have, sort of some visceral dislike of Horn, I don't know how best to express it on family TV here, I would have expected this. I don't know that Polk has that anything in it for her. And so I thought maybe she would just decide, okay, I got the hearing officer's recommendation. It's a close call. The voters are going to get to decide. That all this evidence will be out here in front of the voters in August in terms of the primary, and if he survives the primary, again in November.
The timing of that decision with Sarah Beatty, an ex-staffer at the Attorney General's office, coming out and claiming, filing a claim with the Secretary of State, Clean Elections, anyone who will take a claim, saying that basically Tom Horn is running his re-election campaign right out of the Attorney General's office during work hours. These things, are they, was it a coincidence? I think not.
Well, it's hard to, I doubt that that County Attorney Polk was sitting there waiting for Sarah Beatty's filing before issuing her opinion. But yeah, you could sort of look at this and say, isn't this interesting? All this, what appears to be piling on. And I believe that today, one of the Attorney General staffers that was named in Beatty's deposition also handed in his resignation at the Attorney General's office. So it mounts, and you do wonder where it's going to end.
And you get into some interesting stuff here, because all of these people, they're not people who clock in and clock out. So the argument is, well, during your lunch hour, during your break, you can look at personal emails, you can work on other stuff. Well, when it's being done in the office there's a question of whether it meets the legal test. Does it meet the smell test? I mean, how do you parse out, well, from 8:05 to 8:10 I was on state business, from 8:10 to 8:12 I was on personal business, from 8:12 to 8:15, it really gets tricky.
Well, it gets tricky. You're the Attorney General, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the state. Do you really want folks that are that close to your campaign, that close to you all day? I mean, the temptation alone would seem to be pretty strong.
Yeah, and this is not the first time that Tom Horn's office has been accused of using his staffers to help out in his campaign. We know that some of his staffers have spoken for his campaign before, and when we reached them on the phone, they would always say, I'm on break, I'm on lunch, I'm at the doctor's office, I'm on my way home to work. They would always say that before the interview, and create this impression, or at least let the reporter know that, yeah, I'm not violating any law here. But you are right. I mean, like I said, this is not the first time that this has happened. And so whether to add credence to what Sarah Beatty is saying, that remains to be seen.
And this is, I think, filed with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office is looking at this aspect of it now, too. Is that true?
Well, basically, Tom Ryan, who's the attorney, figured the shotgun approach is best.
Sure, yeah.
You give it to Secretary of State, you give it to Clean Election Commission, you give it to the FBI, because we know they followed him before, you give it to the county attorney's office, and see, somebody will find something. And what's interesting, again, with the issue is Secretary of State and Clean Elections are dealing with, is it a campaign violation, the use of public resources? Now we're into little Hatch Act things, where in terms of using public resources, and now maybe you're starting to get into the criminal area.
Yes, and we should mention, you referred to Garrett Archer, who was a top aide to Tom Horn, named in the complaint, named in the deposition, decides it's time to spend more time. He could have a family. The Attorney General's office said this was in development for quite a while. He's going to have a child. He wants to change his career direction.
And we wish him success in his future endeavors.
Consider it changed,
Yeah,
yes.
look, the problem with any of these things, you know, how often do we look at changes in the governor's office or any other state agency, and we're sure this was always in the works, and it's just coincidental it's coming now. Who to believe? Look, the voters are going to get a very good chance on August 26th to decide who they believe.
Well, how is all this playing out? I mean, are people paying attention to this? Is this something that's going to, how much does this hurt Tom Horn in the primary? Because he's facing a Republican primary challenge.
I think it is damaging to him in the primary. The question is to what extent. Really, and then the other part of the equation is, does his opponent, Mark Brnovich, can he raise money to get his message out that Tom Horn should be, taken out? Because in any campaign, the narrative making is very important, and you can only do that narrative making if you have the money.
Okay, but there's something else going on. There's a group called the Arizona Public Integrity Alliance. It's a 501c4, which means we're doing educational campaigning,
right.
which means we don't tell you where our money's coming from, we don't tell you where it's going, which is going on the air this weekend with some ads saying the guy is an ethical pygmy, and if he doesn't quit, we're going to suggest impeachment. That's where the message gets made, and it doesn't have to be the money that Mark Brnovich has, because there are others, and they skirt under the law because technically they're not saying vote for or vote against. They're educating voters.
Yeah. So we'll see how far that reaches. But the other thing that you've got to keep in mind is that Horn still has a pretty strong base of support with the very conservative wing of the party. I mean, there was a group that labeled him as a known conservative in their candidate ratings earlier this year, and I don't know that his actions that have been exposed of late, make any difference on that.
Has that changed? I mean, I thought conservatives didn't like Tom Horn when he first came up with the education department.
Well, it depends on the issue. Remember, he started as a Democrat.
Yeah.
He has never been particularly anti-abortion. Fact is, when his offices had to handle it, he usually has a Solicitor General do it. There are a lot of folks who question, where his real heart is on the issue. But he has defended the law, despite even criticism from the governor. He's defended 1070.
His stance on immigration.
He's done the necessary things. And for them, their question is, do you take Tom Horn, who you know, to take on Felicia, because he's beaten Felicia, albeit in a different situation, or do you assume that Brnovich, who's an unknown with a name with leads a few vowels to spell, is gonna do it?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing for me is I'm curious to know how the Rotolini campaign is reacting, responding, preparing for all of these. I am presupposing that they would be very happy if Tom Horn wins the primary. Then they have somebody who has lots of baggages, and they have prepared all of their commercials. Probably right now as we speak, they're preparing them against him. The question is, what happens if Mark Brnovich wins the primary? How does that change the tone of the campaign? Obviously, Felicia is going to have lots of money. She's going to have lots of support. And the fact is that she narrowly lost to Tom Horn in the last election cycle.
Well, last question
4
on
years
it.
ago.
If Brnovich were to beat Horn in the primary, do Horn supporters, these conservatives that you mentioned, do they decide they're going to jump on the Brnovich bandwagon, or are they going to say, I may sit this one out?
Well, I think there's certainly a situation there. It depends on how ugly it is. If Brnovich gets personal,
Yes.
then there's a lot of hurt feelings. I mean, we've got a long history of this in the Republican Party in the state, Steiger versus Conlon, which led to Dennis DeConcini. If it doesn't get personal, they say, okay, here are my choices. I've got Mark Brnovich, clearly conservative credentials, Goldwater Institute, pro-life, pro-private business, and I've got this Democratic woman,
Right.
heaven forbid, then they have to stay with the party.
Yeah. I do sort of want to take exception, though, to your objection to Mr. Brnovich's name as somebody who also has just one vowel,
Yes.
or has a shortage of vowels in her name. I don't think it really hurts you.
Well, I don't know. When you announce for public office, we'll see how many votes you get.
All righto. Let's keep it moving here. John, the superintendent of public instruction, who has a bunch of letters in his last name as well, has decided to attack foes of Common Core, and he's calling them barbarians.
Barbarians at the gate. So we have what we call a morning scoop. It's a Arizona Capital Times event. We invite people to talk about a whole lot of issues. And a few days ago, the issue was education. We got John Huppenthal, and who was a very passionate guy, and has turned out to be one of the fiercest defenders of Common Core, the controversial education benchmarks. And he said, I'm probably staking my whole career on the line here by defending these standards. And he is trying to keep the barbarians at the gate, referring to the folks who oppose Common Core. Of course, that set off a whole sort of criticisms against him. There's the conservative figure, Michelle Malkin, who tweeted about it, tweeted to her, 700,000 or so followers, and said, hey, vote for this guy's opponent.
Oh, I was going to say,
but this guy-
Howie, what are the barbarians saying about this?
Well, the barbarians, have always distrusted him on this issue. I mean, he and the governor, both, and the business community have said, look, here's the deal. If you want people trained to 21st century jobs, get into 21st century colleges, you need to know what they know, and you need to be able to measure them against other states. There are a lot of folks who see it as, Obamacare. It's Washington taking over, and it's the same sort of standard anti-federal stuff. Never mind, it was the National Association of Governors that came up with it and everything else.
Well, what these so-called barbarians, what they're saying in response to Hupenthal's comment is they're taking the high road. They're saying, look, we can disagree on this policy, but you don't need to do name calling. You don't need to get down into the gutter with these kind of slinging these kinds of terms around. And yeah, we don't think Common Core is a good idea. And we've got Diane Douglas as our candidate, and she's going to run on a platform to dismantle Common Core.
And she wants to dismantle it again because it's a federal plot, or what?
Yeah, well, to go back then to what Howie was saying, they believe not so much a plot, but it's all handed down from the federal government. They believe it takes out any kind of local control. It's one size fits all. Never mind that this idea, as Howie said, came from the National Governors Association. That the concept predated, I believe, the Obama administration. But it's tightly tied to the Obama administration, and thus a lot of its negatives.
The other thing that Hupenthal has going in his favor, and we've talked about it on this show, is he certainly has the conservative credentials. The guy cuts a robocall for vouchers and gets criticized, so it's not like all of a sudden he's some left-wing liberal here. So that buys him a certain amount of leeway.
And he's also considered a fiscal conservative. I mean, when he was in the legislature, he was espousing all sorts of tax cuts. At one point, if I'm not mistaken, he even was working on something similar to a flat income tax. This guy is conservative, very conservative, socially conservative, fiscally conservative, but on this issue, he simply disagrees with the Tea Party base.
Then let's take this issue, and let's take the fact that he does have a primary opponent who is on the other side of the issue, a barbarian, if you will. Does he survive a primary?
Oh, I think so. I think that his opponent has failed to raise money, show any signs of political life. I mean, she shows up at legislative hearings, which is part of the reason any of us even know about her. She comes out and testifies. Look, she will get, out of the Republicans, she may get 33, 37% of the vote, maybe even higher. But the fact is that Hupenthal, who's been around, who managed, he was in the legislature far longer than term limits because he figured out how to play that game between the House and the Senate. He's been around. He's got name ID, and he's got the street creds he needs.
And I don't know how many more Republicans who are against Common Core will be persuaded to now support his opponent just because of his comments. The fact is that his position is very well known in the party. I mean, at one point there was a legislative hearing, and he was the only guy on the panel who was defending Common Core. And he's not afraid. He's been barnstorming the state, defending this measure. So it's not as if this is something new. The Republican Party, the base of the Republican Party, in the independents and even Democrats know exactly where he stands, and he's for Common Core.
And the other thing is, he's also, however, protected the other flank. There's this ongoing fight over the school funding and the money that was withheld in inflation. And he actually said, let's put that behind us. Let's give this rebase what the school should be. And so it's not like he's there trying to gut public schools either. So he's tried to be a fair arbiter on these issues.
All right. Could it be possible that we could see an independent at the state legislature next session?
You mean an independent who actually gets elected as one?
Not hanging around the legislature. I mean actually working at the legislature, yes.
Oh, possibly. This week, former State Senator Tom O'Halloran, a Republican, re-registered as an independent and filed papers to run for the Senate as an independent, which means he won't be on the ballot until November. And he's going for the seat that Chester Crandall, a Republican from Heber, currently holds. There's also a Democrat who opened up a committee, but I'm told is not going to pursue that. So if that holds, we'll have an independent who's known in large parts of the district versus a Republican incumbent. And that will be very interesting if Mr. O'Halloran clears all the hurdles to even get on the ballot.
And those hurdles are relatively high for an independent, aren't they?
Yeah, guess who wrote the rules? You know,
Yes.
the Republicans and the Democrats wrote the rules, and independents are not favored. They have, I think O'Halloran in his case has more than 3 times the amount of signature requirement than his Republican foe, and I don't know, 6 times as much as the Democrat. By law, anybody who's an independent, their name is always listed last on the ballot. You don't have access to the party machinery, therefore you don't have access to the cut rate postage for mailing. So there's a lot of hurdles that are sort of baked into the cake. O'Halloran, who again served, I think 8 years total in the legislature, has a reputation, has some name ID, and thinks he can overcome those disadvantages.
It's going to be interesting because he's a very nice guy and moderate, which may be a dirty word in the Republican primary, but he doesn't have to run in that. The question becomes, does he needs to come out attacking, because he needs to overcome the fact there are people who will go into that voting booth in November and strictly vote the party line, no matter who is on there. And so he has to get out there, he has to get above the fray. And he's not a kind of guy who yells and screams and pounds the table, which may be what it's needed, because certainly the guy he's running against is the guy who yells and screams and pounds the table.
Talk about O'Halloran, and again, Chester Crandall, the legacy of both of these guys down there at the Capitol.
Yeah, and I'd spoken with Tom O'Halloran this afternoon, and I said, so what's your path to victory here? I mean, it is a Republican district. I think he mentioned that the Republicans have a 12-point voter registration advantage in that district. So that's a high hurdle. And he said, look, the district that I represented before is a huge chunk of this new district, and therefore I am known in this district. I mean, he's known in places like Sedona, for example, Flagstaff. He believes that if he can get just enough Republicans, and he said, look at my record, it's a Republican record. And if he could get enough Republicans, just enough Democrats, and maybe, even if they split the independents, maybe he wins, or he believes he can win that election. What's even more interesting is that assuming, for example, that he wins the general election against Senator Crandall, the question is, where does he caucus with?
Right.
So I asked him that question, where do you caucus with? And he said, well, you have to be invited by the 2 parties to caucus with them in order for you to caucus with them. And so that would be interesting.
Well, but look, you've been down there. The caucuses involve staffers explaining bills. And in fact, if you watch the House Republican caucus, and certainly not so much the Senate because of different dynamics, there's 5 of the Republicans are in there listening, and the rest are watching on their TV, and it's just having the bills explain it to you. The only reason caucus matters is who do you choose for leadership. And if somehow he gets elected and there's a tight fight for leadership, there'll be a lot of people. He's going to be everybody's new best friend.
Exactly, and also it's the majority caucus that decides who gets to be chairman. And hey, that'd be an interesting scenario there.
Redistricting affect this race at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, because before the current map, O'Halloran represented a district that had big parts of Prescott and parts a little farther northwest. Those are not in the district that he now represents. He's based in Sedona. That district dipped down in there, picks up a lot of Flagstaff, where Democrats are a little more in preponderance. And from what I've been told up there, the Democrats are saying, my goodness, we got some Tea Party types and we want to get rid of them.
Well, and I was going to ask you that. I mean, is this the kind of thing where Democrats could come out and say, that may not be a Democrat, but I'm pushing for him?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think sometimes you take, particularly if there's no Democrat in the race, or even if there is,
Right.
they say, look, why do that? It becomes much more like a recall, like the Russell Pierce situation, where everybody is sort of voting in the same thing and saying who's best for us. And certainly he picks up enough Democrats there, and as Luigi said, enough independents. He could be an independent.
30 seconds left here. Is this the start of a trend or a unique situation?
I think it's a unique situation. It still is very hard to win as an independent in this state.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Monday on Arizona Horizon, a midterm review of the more notable cases being considered by the U.S. Supreme Court. And we'll hear about a new study on the link between outside temperature increases and air conditioning indoors. That's Monday on Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, hear from the attorney representing a former state employee who claims that campaign work for Tom Horne is being done on state time. Wednesday, see how teenagers are helping educate others in using technology. Thursday, a local company's efforts to fight complications of diabetes. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.